Sanjay, your advice to the big data user? How do they move forward, or how do they simplify it?
Wow, I don't know if I don't want to repeat what everybody already said, but it can't, I think the one point I would leave the listeners with is it can't just be about technology. One of the things that we've discovered is oftentimes a first deployment of the service impacts more people than the original IT team thought, and so oftentimes are scrambling to help others understand the value of that data. So you just need to think through the people and business processes that are going to be intertwined with the data and the analysis of that data. Because I think that has a huge impact on how people are going to absorb it and whether people are going to be comfortable with expanding their use of said technology or said applications for the near-term future.
Mm-hmm. I think we're pretty much out of time, but I'd like to have the four of you just sort of briefly wrap up, where we're going with this, because I think it helps people to manage if they know where big data is going. That's a big question, of course, but I mean, if you look, say 1, 3, 5 years out in the future, where is this going, and how is that going to help people manage? Sanjay, why don't you take us home with that?
Sure. I think one of the areas that's going to be very interesting for everybody is that increasingly big data and sort of security are going to be intertwined. If you think about 15 years ago, most applications were running in a data center. Most data was getting generated from application servers and networks. And now, with the growth of hybrid infrastructures, cloud computing, BYOD, etc., that data is getting generated everywhere, right? Not just within the confines of your own environment. And so, I think the ability for people to understand the security implications of what's in that data, how people are securing it, and how people are using it, whether that's within the company or outside of it, is going to become an increasingly important question for people to ask. And I think those worlds are going to blur together because it's happening already.
Mm-hmm. Mike, where are we going with big data 5 years from now? Where is this? What are we going to be talking about?
So I think I mentioned a little bit about memory becoming a cheaper resource. So I'll leave that. But I'll say something about the Internet of Things because it hasn't come up yet. And I think what we're seeing is more and more things like thermometers and cars and toasters, fit devices you wear on your wrist and your iPhone, producing data streams. There's just going to be more and more data. Data is not going to stop increasing for any foreseeable future. So we think we have big data today. In 5 years, we're going to have humongous amounts of data out there. And it's not that we're necessarily get swamped by it, but the opportunity is going to be to who can leverage that amount of data the best and fastest to get to value. And they'll be extremely ramping up the competition within verticals, within current industries, within new industries. And I think today, right now, big data hasn't really touched a lot of existing industries as much as it has sort of the Web 2.0 kinds of companies. And we're just now starting to see big data coming into the rank and file enterprises and moving into even small and medium businesses and providing them value. I think in 5 years, we're going to be starting from a very different perspective. You just aren't going to run a business of any size without having to deal with data that's beyond imagining today. Basically big data is
beyond your own business, as Joel mentioned.
Yeah, big data. I mean, it's basically going to become a data-driven world, and you just will have to be able to work and deal and talk and be conversant in all these new things we've been talking about today.
Joel, the future of big data, and people are going to look back at this video 5 years from now. They're going to say, "Well, she really knew what she was talking about."
I doubt that, but I'll give it my best shot.
Okay.
I think that we're going to see. It's interesting. I don't disagree with Mike. The world should become more data-driven, but again, research is showing that the more data there is, the lower the percentage of data-driven decisions that are made.
Really?
So it is, particularly among marketers. They're drowning in it, and the winners will be those that can figure out the right data to use, as opposed to the most data. And you need large data sets, but you need to focus in very carefully. I think we'll see the rise, here's a new buzz term, it's getting some momentum, of thick data. And
thick data.
Thick data. Thick data Big data.
True confession, that's a new one on me. So please tell us what thick data is.
Thick data is, and it's not my name. It was in another publication. I won't name it for you.
Okay.
They're talking about how that's big data with human insights and human overlay, and that it's this overlap in the Venn diagram of large amounts of data, smart algorithms, and insightful people. And everyone on the call has talked about that. The buzzword we've heard about it is thick data. So we'll have people winning because they choose the right data, the thickening and the making of data more valuable by human insight. And then the third, I'll predict, we're actually going to get a lot smarter about data and content. Because the frontier that we're on, that we won't be alone on, is the ability of computers to understand content and then be able to make predictions about what content is relevant to what situation.
What do you mean by content? You mean articles and videos?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, whether it's images, articles, videos. Today, the way that's done, the big, dark, dirty secret, is it's done by humans categorizing and trying to group things so that the databases can put them all together. But that you can't keep up, it's nonsensical. And so the future is computers that actually read and understand the content with human guidance and input, and then transforming content marketing and publishing and editing and all the things that we're doing day to day, and giving us guidelines and suggestions about, hey, not even suggestions, sometimes doing it for us, putting forth A instead of B, C, or D.
It's not going to put the editors out of business, is it, Joelle?
I started with thick data. We will always need, humans are much better authors, and humans have emotion and can understand the emotional impact of different decisions. Computers are not good at either of those things.
Donna, the future of big data, where are we going a few years
Oh,
from
man,
now?
after that, I have no, I just keep thinking about when you said when we watch this in 2 years, it's like, oh, yikes, it's going to be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of what's difficult is, we didn't have Instagram 2 or 3 years ago, right? Now there's Instagram data we have to deal with. There wasn't Twitter at one point. It's like we have no idea, right, of what type of data we might be collecting in another 6 months, for instance. I mean, it's almost too hard to predict. But I do think that a lot of the technologies we've seen, like Hadoop, some of the NoSQL data sources, some of just the tools that have made things simpler. I think we'll see things become simpler and more reliable and less complex, just because there'll be a demand for it, because there is value in this data to organizations. And then I think, one of the other things that Mike brought up was the Internet of Things. So I think that the power of, collecting sensor data and collecting behavioral data in terms of sentiment, those things are going to become really important, especially as you blend them and combine them with other data sources. And so things like predicting failures and understanding demographics and customer behavior will become more and more bread and butter for every organization. They won't be sort of out there in terms of the things that we're capable of doing. So, it's really just, I think over time it's got to get simpler and it's got to get less complex.
It's got to be true. I mean, I would certainly bet on that one, the need for simplification of it. That is a lot of really great stuff. I appreciate the four of you joining us. I will send you all a link. And let me press my applause button here because I think it's important. There we go. It's a Google effect. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining.